and core of the manager's management methodology and the mechanics with which he engages with them on a daily basis, I think that creates that satisfaction. In terms of the manager providing that ecosystem, like Sadaf said, that platform for them to grow as a person, both professionally and personally, because guess what? We spend more time at work than we do at in our homes, right?
That's true.
So what goes around and what happens in our in our office setup, office environment, provides a plethora of opportunities for our team members to grow personally and professionally. So to answer your question, I always recruit people. I know it's difficult to fathom, but I would normally like to see skills in a person that I do not possess. I sort of already have a succession plan in my mind that could this person replace me in 5 to 10 years time frame. And it's not easy to determine the outcome of that unless you really put your heart and soul into providing that ecosystem, providing that platform to each team member, that their hard work will be rewarded. हमारे कल्चर में ये भी है कि और ये इसलिए भी आया है कि एक सरकारी नौकरी का एक कॉन्सेप्ट ग्रोइंग अप, दिस इज व्हाट वी हर्ड फ्रॉम आवर पेरेंट्स, राइट? सरकार की नौकरी होगी और बारे न्यारे हो जाएंगे. But then the private sector flourished to such an extent that we hung on to our biases. नहीं, मैं मेहनत कर भी लूंगा तो उससे कुछ नहीं होगा. So one of the first things that a manager has to ensure is that the enabling environment that he or she is creating, the team member recognizes that hard work will always lead to success, whether in the current company or in some other organization. So if the current organization does not value the hard work and the hours put in, because the person and the individual is growing professionally, they may be of higher value to some other organization, as long as there is sincerity and the awareness of the common purpose. हर company का एक common purpose होता है, whether it is gaining market share or being a market leader in XYZ industry. So to answer your question, it is a longer debate, but to me personally, I think Sadaf set us at a very right path, that it is that enabling environment in which your corporate culture is a huge change maker. It can accelerate a person's personal and professional growth. So one of the first fundamental jobs for a manager is to amplify that culture if it's pre-existing, and if it is not pre-existing and if there has been conflict within the team, then through coaching and mentorship, try to create those such an environment that people feel rewarded and valued.
Naveed sir, very good point. Coaching and mentorship, which brings me to my next question. Sadaf, this one is directed to you. A lot of companies invest, supposedly they invest in a lot of human capital by virtue of training, by virtue of coaching, mentoring, and the likes. So, and one thing that came out of Naveed's discussion also, वो ये था कि जी अगर वो आपके पास काम करते हैं या नहीं करते हैं, regardless of the fact, and even if they move on to other companies. So how does one take this? Because some companies do not invest in training and coaching, thinking कि जी हम इसके ऊपर ये जब invest करेंगे और ये कहीं और चला जाएगा, हमारे competitor के पास जाके वहाँ पे काम करना शुरू कर देगा, वो skills और वो value add करना शुरू कर देगा. उस चक्कर में हम अपने ecosystem में training, consulting और coaching, mentoring को promote नहीं करते. So a quick answer from Sadaf, and the same answer I would like from Naveed also.
Sure. So, definitely, in a lot of organizations, training is considered as an overhead, not as an investment. So basically, if you again refer to the first point, that if you treat your human resource as human capital, then you want your capital to grow. Nobody in their right mind would just want to stay there, keep their capital at the baseline. And for human beings to grow, they need to be nurtured and they need to be, provided with all the ingredients that are needed. Secondly, fine. I mean, we hire smart people or we try to hire the best people. Like Naveed Saab mentioned, you try to hire, if you're a good manager, if you're an A grade manager, you'll try to hire people who are at least in A grade or maybe A plus. And they would ideally be bringing uh, capabilities and capacities already to the organization, which we feel we lack. So whenever we're creating a team, we want to have synergy. So having hired smart people, qualified people, having developed that basis, creating a good positive culture, where they are given the opportunities to grow and thrive. Now, if you imagine that scenario and then you don't invest in trainings, it's like bringing a plant home from the nursery, putting it in, and then forgetting to water it, and not providing it with the nutrients. So, it's just like that. And the true cost of not training employees is that, okay, so you spend a certain dollar amount on training an individual with the intention, just like with any other investment, that there will be a return on investment. Imagine not making that investment. So the person is always going to lack in certain areas. Maybe they lack the finesse, maybe they lack the technical knowledge, maybe they will lack the grooming or the softer skills that are needed to take them to the next level. And as a result, you're hampering the growth of your own organization. So the true cost of not investing on trainings is basically um, creating an environment and a culture where people are stagnant and they're just staying where they're staying. And I'm not saying that it has to be big investment. These days, with platforms like Degree, Coursera, Udemy, training is very, very affordable. It is within the reach of even the small to medium enterprise. Of course, large enterprises have bigger budgets, they can spend more, they can do in-person trainings, but there's nothing that says that you cannot empower and train and guide your employees to learn using
Agreed.
virtual platforms. Secondly, when it
लेकिन
comes
अभी
to
आपने
coaching
कहा ना
and
कि investment, Sadaf, you've used the word
business,
investment a couple of times,
and then
but
because
I think
coaching
for
and
a lot of
mentoring
people
is
it's still an
also an
overhead.
investment. Coaching and mentoring is
Investment
also an
करें तो
investment
मानते नहीं
because
ना.
it's an investment of time as well. It's not just an investment of dollars, right? So जब आप कोचिंग और मेंटरिंग की बात करते हैं, अगर नवीद साहब या मैं किसी को कोच करते हैं या मेंटोर करते हैं, so it's a time and energy investment. You are going to be teaching a person how to navigate the corporate world. You may be teaching them and guiding them on the technicalities of things, on how to handle stress, how to handle pressure of deadlines. You could be coaching them on how to be a good leader. So that's a time investment. It's a time commitment. And what I would say is that it's not just about money. Time investment is equally important. And creating a culture of mentoring also requires a culture of reverse mentoring. I think we have a lot to learn from the younger generation. And I, for one, believe in reverse mentoring. So if I'm mentoring somebody, I would expect that person to reverse mentor me because we have a lot to learn from the millennials and the Gen Zs of this world because
Agreed,
we're
agreed.
living in a digital
And
transformation
actually,
here.
it's called reverse learning also because it's not just the
Yeah,
mentoring.
yeah,
When I got into teaching, the first concept was paying it forward, but the most important concept was also learning from these millennials and Gen Zs and a lot of. And it's not just the technical skills that we can learn from them. They have a higher level of awareness.
yeah.
जैसे like Naveed said that there was a time when the ultimate was a sarkari naukri. Now these millennials and Gen Zs they don't even want to go to a sarkari naukri and they cannot imagine कि कोई 50 साल तक काम करेगा. I have an uncle who's worked in one organization for 51 years. Now that is unthinkable. So
Unthinkable.
there's a lot to learn from these people. Naveed, would you like to add to this discussion?
Just wanted to explain my earlier comment with regards to Sarkari Naukri versus. So I was really referring to the biases. तो आजकल सुनने में आता है कि even if I put hard work during the course of the day, boss का तो कोई favorite होगा ना. So that is the most negative attribute one can have in
Agree.
an organization. So,
Agree.
right. दूसरी बात जो I'll just pick on what Sadaf mentioned. See, I mentioned to you earlier that when I'm recruiting, I'm already thinking of a succession plan. हो सकता है कि मेरे अपने दिल में इतनी इनसिक्योरिटी हो कि मैं इतना लोअर ग्रेड लोअर स्किल्ड आदमी या जेंटलमैन और लेडी हायर करूं कि वो मेरे कंपटीशन में ही नहीं आए. कभी कभी मैनेजर्स बड़े इनसिक्योर होते हैं कि मेरे करीब भी ना घूमे वो इन टर्म्स ऑफ स्किल सेट्स. But when Sadaf mentions reverse learning, I am amazed by the things I learn from my team because they are in the field. मैं तो एक बिजनेस की पीएनएल को मैनेज कर रहा हूँ. But when they share real time experiences that, and so that's learning. So to me, leadership is not a position. Leadership is a state of mind. And in order for any new hiree to get to that level, the enabling environment and the ecosystem that we agreed upon earlier has to have a cadence of trainings, whether it and article work from home, post pandemic, lower cost media are being leveraged to scale up in your skill radically differently, right? And मैं थोड़ी देर पहले एक बहुत ही कॉम्प्लेक्स टेक्निकल सोल्यूशन पे ट्रेनिंग ले रहा था जबकि मेरी जॉब कंपनी के पीएनएल को मैनेज करना है. और मैं सोच रहा था कि व्हाई द हेल डू आई हैव टू learn about
Exactly.
such a complex
Yeah.
infrastructure conversation. And then I realized that this is how we make money. If I do not know the
The
basic
product. Yes.
the basics of what drives us as market leader, then मैं ये चीज अपनी टीम को नहीं evangelize कर सकता. So I think each this is more this has to do more with recruitment and retention. It has to do with a cadence and a culture of investing in skills and development. I'm very pleased that we have that cadence. और मैं रात के 9:45 बजे मुझे एक ट्रेनिंग कंप्लीट करनी है. ये प्रेशर मेरी सारी टीम पे है. एंड वी हैव अ सेपरेट व्हाट्सएप ग्रुप कि भाई किस किस ने वो काम कर लिया. बिकॉज इफ आई एम इन्वॉल्व in such a training, I have to present that pitch to my manager tomorrow. And 14 of my team members have to deliver that pitch to me tomorrow. So
Wow.
it is that inclusive culture where my success is actually a subset of all those team members having eloquence and the skill of articulation when they go out in the field and do the best that they can. Because guess what? We earlier agreed that Sadaf also agreed with me, grade A managers will have hired grade A team or A plus team member.
On
So
that
that's
note,
what
by the way, grade A and grade A managers and hiring grade A people. There's one obvious question from a slight deviation from the topic, but very important for recruitment. Whatever the process that you may have in your individual companies and in general, but generally there is a interview process. There is probably a test which is written, और उसके साथ एक series of interviews होते हैं, और eventually HR से शुरू होता है जो relevant department में जाता है. Now I have a question from the both of you, और वो बड़ा अहम सवाल आम लोगों के लिए, especially for the youth also, very important. How can you evaluate a person very clearly in 30 minutes, 40 minutes, or even in a series of interviews? How can you evaluate the person that if that person is the best fit for your culture, for your organization, and regardless, आप executive रख रहे हैं या director रख रहे हैं, and that person will actually contribute to the bottom line? So a quick answer from Naveed, and then we move on to Sadaf.
So we have a talent acquisition team. अगर कैंडिडेट्स के बायोस एक रिपोजिटरी से मेरे साथ शेयर किए जाते हैं तो आई एम वेरी अनकन्वेंशनल इन माय अप्रोच. आई नॉर्मली हैव a cup of tea, a cup of coffee with the gentleman or the lady who. So this is pre-interview. This is not a formal interview. तो मुझे अगर आप मुझसे ये पूछें कि क्या चीज मैं देख रहा हूँ, it's really sincerity and the skill to articulate oneself effectively. I do not look at academic achievement. I do look at experience. I do look at longevity of a person's stay in an organization. A person who does not spend more than 2 years, if anything less than 2 years, चार पांच jobs every other year आप छोड़ रहे हैं, तो that is the first red flag for me. इससे पहले ऑनेस्टी, सिंसेरिटी, ट्रांसपेरेंसी, ये स्किल अक्वायर्ड है। इसको गेज करने के लिए इंटरव्यू को थोड़ा सा रिलैक्स इन्वायरमेंट में आदमी करे, और ताकि वो पर्सनल एलिमेंट जो है, व्हाट वी आर लुकिंग फॉर इज दैट डिफरेंशिएशन in the personal attributes and the values that a person has. बाकी सारी चीजें on the job learning है. If it's a technical role, then there is, like then the importance of the training program comes in, right? तो कोई भी सीख के नहीं आता दुनिया में ना, वो तो
Obviously,
दुनिया में हम आते हैं, दुनिया में तो
it's not the technical
सीख,
skills or the academics, but very
yeah.
rightly pointed out, it's about the sincerity and the honesty. And Sadaf, would you like to add your point of view also on that? Again, my question is still there. How can you gauge that sincerity, honesty? Because everybody is at their best when they are giving an interview. They will never show you the negative side of it, of themselves. So how
But
do
I
you
think they'll
actually
try
gauge
to.
that?
So I think interviewing, both giving an interview and acing an interview and taking an interview are both skills that you acquire over time. There are some people who aren't that great, but they give really awesome interviews, and they actually end up, getting through the process. But
Naveed
if
is smiling.
you're
He knows
organized,
some people like that.
yeah. So we all know people like that. So,
Yeah.
but at the end of the day, I think to add on to what Naveed Saab said, I think there are a couple of ways. It's not enough to say that no organization just has a single interview for filtering out candidates. But there are multiple phases, and the honesty bit. Obviously, the best way is to keep uh, checking up on certain aspects. So, for example, honesty and integrity, you can check through various, means in various phases of the hiring process, starting from the screening all the way down to when the GM or the CEO interviews that candidate, if it's a senior enough position, or at least it goes up to a senior manager level. Secondly, there are a lot of behavioral questions that you ask that kind of catch people off guard unless you're doing a very scripted interview. So my way is to catch them off guard. So I've never taken a scripted interview in my life. I never even jot down the questions, and I try to use their resume as like a platform, and I just keep it very natural. I just throw them into a situation because what I'm trying to see is that if whatever they've written on the resume is true, that's great. I mean, generally people mention their achievements and the successful track record, but that's not the only thing that I'm looking for when I'm hiring. I need people who can think on their feet, who are street smart, who have forward thinking, who explore domains outside their areas of expertise and comfort, and who can bring ideas to the table. So let's say I interviewed somebody who comes from a pharma background. Well, I really like that candidate because he was so quick on his feet, thinking and applying the technologies that they've been using in the pharma industry and how they would adapt to a food and beverages setup. And I was really impressed. And I told him, like, take a couple of minutes and think this through and tell me that you take IoT, you take RPA, you take AR and VR, and give me three applications of that in a CSD, like a beverages and a snacks business. And he was like, just, oh, he took 2 minutes and he came up with some really great ideas. So you need people like that because if you've achieved all of that, and if you were instrumental in the successful launch of XYZ projects and products, then and you were a key contributor and had a major role to play. So you were not just following instructions; you were thinking outside the box. So that, and obviously, if you talk about PepsiCo, I mean, we have a very strenuous like hiring process. When I joined last year, not in addition to going through four interviews, I went through a series like a battery of automated tests. and that's pretty normal. And I'm like, why am I going through the Ravens test? Apparently, what quartile you score in really has some impact on your leadership grade and other. So, technology has come into play in the selection process to help facilitate us. But I always trust my gut instinct on these things. And I think over time, you develop kind of like a knack of being able to filter out the right candidate from the
So
wrong fit.
one thing important that Sadaf pointed out, that everybody's looking these days for street smart people, be it sales, be it marketing. Naveed's primarily most important function being sales, that is managed at Dell, both pre-sales and post. And that's the business that Dell Pakistan is primarily in, and that's how the profitability is contributed onto. But when we look at academics, Naveed has clearly pointed out that academics is generally put on the side because that's something that's already been filtered out by the talent acquisition team. But in general, there is this dichotomy between academics and street smart people. So if you're all looking for academics, then we might not find those street smart people. And street smart people generally have shortcuts, not in the negative sense, also in the positive sense. And so they could be probably average academic people. And I think what the Gen Zs and the millennials are now looking at is more of practical skills, which makes them more street smart. So, Naveed, what's your comment on that?
I think for me, being street smart is being aware of the larger landscape. So if you have someone who is a street smart pre-sales professional, then and he or she is designing a complex solution, is the ability के मुझे किस बंदे को या बंदी को पिच करना है, ये उसका क्या बैकग्राउंड है, उस कंपनी के क्या इम्पेरेटिव्स हैं आईटी के रेफरेंस से, ग्रोथ के रेफरेंस से. सो स्ट्रीट स्मार्ट डज नॉट मीन यू आर क्विक ऑन जागन में आप स्ट्रीट स्मार्ट हैं या आप ऐसी टर्मिनोलॉजी बात करते हैं कि अवामी जबान की तरह. इट्स रियली बीइंग aware of the linkages, how this person, what is the success indicator of the person to whom I'm going to pitch a solution tomorrow. And 10 years ago, where was this person? I remember this person 10 years ago was working here. And by the way, I was with another vendor and I was pitching this and he said this. So to me, street smart is being aware of the larger landscape, applying your knowledge prudently and very quickly to give folks like me the insight. And I can then definitely steer them in the right. Normally, I'm very blessed. 95% of the cases, my team always has the right next step well established. So that to me is the street smart. That I don't know whether Sadaf had the same
I had a
idea
similar
behind
idea.
it.
I think we all have a similar point of view on street smart. In fact, what Sadaf had said, we have an interesting comment also from one of our viewers, and it says, I think CV is not important. You need to see people face-to-face case discussion. And I think
this is exactly how I started. I would normally have a very informal discussion, pre-formal interview. It could be आपसे मिलने का इश्तियाक है. I've heard about you. I know you have applied, but just wanted to have a cup of tea with you. I can explain what we are as a company, what we are looking for. And जब discussion खत्म होती है तब तक मैं gauge कर चुका होता हूँ, both on the points that Sadaf mentioned, street smarts, skills, right?
There is a human psyche which says, and it has worked for me also, and I think it works for a lot of people, is that if you really want to get to know a person, either you have a cup of tea with them, you eat with them, or you travel with them. And the last one being, you get to know the most about a person when you actually travel with them. So I think maybe one way of recruiting people could also be that we start doing away days with them without even putting them on board. And, we travel with them somehow. We develop a mechanism where we get to know them better. Or maybe we have, a get-together kind of a thing where we interact with them. And I would like to move on to my next question, which is very critical. And I have the opportunity of talking to two IT giants and tech gurus in our panel, so I will not let go of this opportunity. I was reading this article, and I'm sure a lot of people are also aware of how big data and especially AI जो है वो प्रोग्रेस कर रहा है और पाकिस्तान में भी अब AI टेक्नोलॉजी पेनिट्रेट हो गई है. सो देयर इज दिस फियर बिकॉज हम ये नहीं समझते कि ह्यूमन कैपिटल कैपिटल है, हम ये नहीं समझते कि ट्रेनिंग जो है वो एक ओवरहेड नहीं इन्वेस्टमेंट है, और ह्यूमन जो हमारी सैलरीज होती हैं या जो ह्यूमन एक्सपेंस होता है, एक तो हम सोचते हैं कि हम पे कट कैसे कर दें, बंदे कम कैसे कर दें, कॉस्ट कैसे कम कर दें और एक्सपेंस कैसे कम कर दें, बिकॉज वी स्टिल इन सम एरियाज वी वर्किंग इन दोज प्लेसेस. सो माय question to the both of you here and open to discussion is that in the next one decade, I read this article which said in the next one decade, we would probably have human capital replaced or partially replaced by AI, and especially in the fields of accounting and sales. So, what are your comments on this?
So I'll go first. So Shazad, I think it's when you talk about the next decade, I think the way the last decade has gone by, I would say that may not be very far-fetched because the things that are possible now were considered impossible and really like a crazy out there idea maybe 10 years ago. So the way the pace of technology advancement and adoption that is phenomenal. I mean, it is exponential, and we are well on our way to be controlled by bots and AI algorithms. However, having said that, I think the real crux of the matter is that a lot of these replacements that people fear are going to be in mundane, tedious, repetitive tasks. And RPA is already here, and a lot of other technologies like bots are already here. So the real investment on human capital needs to be in value added services, not in data entry. So they cannot replace the human logical thinking patterns. The way the brain's design patterns works to formulate a computer or an algorithm in AI that can work like the human brain is not going to take a decade. It's going to take perhaps more like a century or something. So you need to enable people to start using their brains more effectively, invest on your human capital, develop skills. There are certain skills of the future. If you read the Gartner reports and all, so there are certain skills of the future, certain professions like data analytics, data sciences. Those are the professions where we need more people in. And mundane tasks, even in countries, emerging markets like Pakistan and India or even Thailand, I don't think AI is replacing human capital anytime soon for the simple reason that the technology is not going to be very affordable. Human resources are cheaper and technology is more expensive. That is the case now, and that's not
Human
something
resource
that
is cheaper and technology is expensive. That
it
gives a
is
lot of
expensive.
hope to a lot
It
of
is.
people and hope to the
Yeah,
future.
yeah. So then the thought becomes that if I'm going to replace 100 people with this tech, then it makes sense. Then it makes commercial sense. But if I'm replacing 5 people with this tech, so if I create a chatbot or if I create an RPA implementation and it costs me 80,000 US dollars, that's not beneficial to me if all I end up doing is replace 5 accountants. So
Exactly.
because there's no there has to be like a trade-off analysis that is done. So for emerging markets, no, but for developed economies, that's already started to happen, and people really need to be focusing on what do the kids actually learn in universities. And I again go back to the street smart analogy that I used. What I was trying to say was people who are adaptable, people who can learn on the go, people who are fast learners have shorter learning curves, and if you throw them on, at the deep end of the pool, they're going to figure out a way to swim to the top. And academics matter to certain levels for me, not the GPA. However, the fact that there are certain institutions, and we call them institutions for a reason, certain institutions ingrain certain fundamental core, knowledge bases in the graduates that come out of those institutions. And those fundamentals are what set you up to be street smart and adaptable later on in your career. They grill you to the point where when you graduate from those places, even if you graduated with a 2.5 GPA, you would still be better off than graduating from a tier 2 or tier 3 university with a 3.5 or a 4 GPA. So I think GPAs don't really matter, but you know,
Agreed.
going to a place which allows you to explore technologies of the future, which gives you a platform to learn about emerging tech, and then actually going and getting your hands dirty. I mean, learn what is the technology of the future and then go and implement it somewhere in your final year projects. Do an entrepreneurship bit, associate yourself with an incubator as they're working with a lot of universities. So I think everybody needs to think about what the next gen is going to look like, and definitely not saying that it's going to be an AI invasion or a bot invasion, but slowly and steadily, more mundane and tedious jobs are going to become obsolete and they will be replaced with tech as the tech becomes cheaper for that and more accessible.
Great. So, Naveed, my next question to you is the desktop was replaced by the laptop. The laptop is now getting replaced by the mobile phone. Probably the mobile phone will get replaced by something else. But what we notice here is that the human element is still there. It's just the technology that keeps changing. So there's a phrase that people who will adapt to new technologies will never get obsolete. So human capital will never be obsolete as long as they keep updating to the new technology. That's the first part. So in part of updating yourself to the new technology, on the softer side of management, and since you're responsible for profitability, how open are Pakistani organizations? This is not just for your organization. How open do you think are Pakistani organizations towards getting external people, mentors, coaches, trainers, and even consultants to get into their business and increase the productivity and efficiency and enable the organization to create an impact? So how much are we outward looking? हम बाहर से कितना स्कोप देखते हैं कि बाहर से हम किसी को लाएं जो हमें ट्रेन करे या नए आइडियाज शेयर करे, not maybe just technical, otherwise also. Do you think Pakistani organizations are open to that now?
I think if even if traditionally there has been a conservative approach or there has been some hesitation, the local businesses see the key to future success is innovation. Okay, there cannot be one single distinct milestone के इस time frame में आपको एक external trainer की या external technical expert team की intervention की जरूरत है. 24/7 you are constantly getting data. Data is being received by your organization through various platforms, whether it's social media, whether it is through face-to-face interaction with customers. जो बात पहले आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस की आ रही थी उस पे भी बेसिक टेस्ट क्या था आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस को गेज करने का? इट वाज द ट्यूरिंग टेस्ट, राइट? कैन यू आस्क अ क्वेश्चन टू अ बॉक्स, उस बॉक्स में बेशक एक ह्यूमन हो या कोई एआई की डिवाइस हो, आपको ज्यादा प्रोफाउंड जवाब अगर उस डब्बे से आ जाए जहां एआई की डिवाइस है, then you have achieved that level and caliber and rank and grade of AI. वो स्टेज जिस तरह सदफ ने कहा अभी उसमें टाइम है, और but AI today for me is a methodology of utilizing the data that the company is receiving or you are receiving from various media to get more innovative in your core business. और अगर किसी भी लेवल पे, जिस तरह पहले हम बात कर रहे थे, whether those repetitive tasks are replaced by machines, companies will still need the human capital, would have to re-engineer their skills to target next level of growth, and that will happen with innovation. Innovation can come in several ways, but you need the human mind to think of those possibilities. उसमें machines आपको aid करेंगी, लेकिन आपको शायद lead अभी ना कर पाए. The human mind is still robust enough and vibrant enough to think of those possibilities with regards to how you are successful in your core business.
And the second part of the question, how much do you think are organizations outward looking and getting, देखिए हमारा एक fear ये भी है ना कि हमारा data, हमारी information, हमारी चीजें जो है वो बाहर जाएंगी या बाहर से एक consultant आएगा और वो हमें बताएगा. Rightly or wrongly so, a lot of organizations even today are led by people who have a control mechanism or who feel के जिसको हम अपनी जबान में सीट कल्चर भी कहते हैं. So they think that they're doing the right job. So leadership के ऊपर inshallah we are going to plan something else and another show because that's a very very important topic. But अगर हमारे पास उस तरह के leaders नहीं हैं तो एक hesitation होता है कि हम
वो तो डेफिनेटली
क्या करना है.
सेट ऑर्गेनाइजेशन की ग्रोथ तो इट विल बी ऑलवेज बी स्टंटेड and be a function of how innovative the leader is, right? अगर सेठ जो है beyond a certain parameter नहीं देखना चाह रहा, beyond a certain horizon नहीं देखना चाह रहा, तो we can only feel empathy for the and sympathy for that company. But sorry, आपका दूसरा सवाल था. I've
outward looking. I mean कि मेरा consultant आके मुझे बताएगा and plus how much of information sharing with external partners.
देखिए एक जमाना आज से जब पाकिस्तान में सिक्योरिटी की सिचुएशन थोड़ी सी चैलेंजिंग बहुत ज्यादा थी, अभी इतनी कोई खास इम्प्रूव नहीं हुई, पेंडेमिक ने और चैलेंज क्रिएट कर दिया, तो बाहर के लोग क्योंकि बहुत रिलक्टेंट थे पाकिस्तान को ट्रैवल करने के रेफरेंस से, तो आई थिंक दैट to me, my assessment is that a lot of skill has been developed in country और हमारी dependency अब किसी foreign expert या foreign domain team की नहीं है, उतनी ज़्यादा नहीं है जितनी पहले थी. So companies are always receptive to new ideas if it is in the form of someone traveling from abroad, that is fine. But what I'm saying is हमने जो challenging दिन देखे हैं उसकी वजह से मुझे बहुत ज़्यादा कॉन्फिडेंस है अपने लोगों में कि उन्होंने वो स्किल्स अक्वायर किए हैं कि जो किसी भी बिजनेस को इनोवेशन के थ्रू सक्सेसफुल होने में कारआमद होंगी और वो दरकार भी होंगी और वो इम्प्लीमेंट भी होंगी. आप किसी भी इंडस्ट्री में चले जाएं, अब आपको एक्सपर्ट्स मिलते हैं जो उतने ही केपेबल हैं जितने लोग बाहर हैं. सो कंपनीज आर आउटवर्ड लुकिंग, उसमें कोई भी मैं नहीं समझता कोई इतनी कोई हेजिटेशन है. लेकिन हमने जो पहले बात की थी ना, इट विल डिपेंड ऑन हु इज रनिंग द ऑर्गेनाइजेशन. तो इस पे अगर आप प्लान कर रहे हैं एक सेपरेट सेशन, तो आई थिंक दैट वुड बी वेरी यूजफुल बिकॉज उस क्लास को हमें ट्रांसफॉर्म करना है, उस लीडरशिप क्लास को हमें ट्रांसफॉर्म करना है to these external interventions and the possibilities.
Agreed. If we have a very interesting comment also, which says that it's a continuous process, whether external or internal trainers and Pakistani companies should be open for this. Would you like to comment on this, Sadaf? And especially with your organization, how open are you to external people and external trainers and also new people coming in just to consult? How would your organization and yourself look at it?
I think we are very open, and the main idea is that we have a blend of both internal trainings as well as external trainings. You have to think at this in the way that, if you really consider this to be a continuous improvement process, to any organization, especially the bigger the organization, the more stagnant, the risk of stagnation is higher, right? So outward in thinking is always welcome. So we are bringing in consultants for our scaled agile trainings. We're bringing in consultants for a business process engineering activities. And the idea is that leverage the expertise of people who've done it for dozens of Fortune 500 companies. And they have that experience, the exposure They're aware of the risks and challenges and the mitigations of what could be the potential pitfalls, because in a multi-million dollar project of business process automation or business process engineering, or if you're completely changing your IT working methodology, let's say from your standard waterfall model to an agile framework, at a global scale. And that is something that we've done. So we brought in BCG as a consulting partner. We brought PwC in some cases as a consulting partner. And the idea was that, they will hold our hands through the journey towards the transformation that is happening. Then we did like knowledge transfer, and now we have internal agile champions, then we have internal process champions, and they will use the train the trainer approach to continue to cascade those trainings down the line. So it's always a blend, and bringing in external consultants is not an overhead. At times, it's a necessity for the successful launch, and to give you that launching pad and to cascade the knowledge and to cascade the tools and techniques in the right possible way, because they're the experts at doing that. I mean, if you want to learn something new, I mean, you have to go to the experts. And once you do that, then you can cascade it down the teams through internal training. So it always has to be a blend. And there is no harm in it. In fact, it is highly encouraged. Because, when I look at it, no matter how much hands on work I've done on agile frameworks, I'm still not going to be as adept at certain tools and techniques as a guy whose day job is to be a consultant and who does like maybe 3 projects in 3 months. So I may have done 3 projects in 3 years because it's not my day job. So essentially, it's just a matter of blending the two in. And I do agree with the comment that it is a continuous process and you need to continue to reinvest and reinvent the way things operate and never be
Invest
afraid
and
to challenge.
invent. I think that's the catchphrase here. Invest and invent. I think during it's the time of the day, and also both the panelists have given a lot of their time, and Naveed just told us that he has an assignment to do also. So final word
That's
from
the plan.
Sadaf and Naveed. I think when we talk about outward looking, and the key learnings of this discussion primarily are that human capital is first of all capital, and investment and training, coaching, mentoring are probably things that should be looked at as not as overheads, but as not as expenses, but as investment. And I think once we overcome all of these thoughts, then we will probably have lesser number of challenges in recruitment as well as in retention. And I think one of those platforms that has also helped people connect and have an outward outlook for different organizations to come together, and especially the people element to come together, is the CXO Global Forum. So I would like you guys to take a minute each to give your feedback on this CXO Global Forum, and how it can help people and how it has helped you individually and your organizations collectively. Sadaf.
So, final comments. Basically, what I think is that if we talk about hiring the right people and retaining the right people, I think we should focus on the use of technology, because AI is really getting, huge in the recruitment industry. So we need to use a blend of technology, a blend of experience, a blend of informal and formal interviewing and selection criteria to come up with the right candidates who are a good cultural fit as well as a good, uh, you know, um, overall fit for the organization. Having said that, there is one other important factor that when you hire really smart people, you should hire them with the intention of letting them do their jobs and, in fact, letting them tell you what needs to be done rather than hiring super smart people and then going about micromanaging and telling them how things should be done. Because if that is what you needed, you might as well go and hire B and C graders because they wouldn't know any better. So you want people to challenge you, you want people to question you, you want people to come up with ideas that you couldn't have come up with on your own. So those are the kind of, I think, metrics and KPIs that I personally think more organizations need to be looking at. And in terms of the role of the CXO forum, I think Kamal has done a great job of bringing on board a diverse diaspora of people coming in, like from every area of technology, be it technology leadership, be it people from the infrastructure side, from the consulting side, people like me who are more on managing the business technology relationships. So I think that has provided us a forum to interact and to share our experiences and to learn from each other and to help create a stronger digital Pakistan. It's a step towards the right direction, I think.
Great. Naveed, your comments?
So we have a burgeoning youth in the country. We are often talk about more than 60% of our population being under the age of 25. So what I mentioned earlier about integrity, a right mix of skill and street smart and academic background. So that's those 4 or 5 points are for the benefit of those who are out looking for opportunities, career opportunities. With regards to companies, we should hire with innovation and growth in mind, but then also building stronger teams because people sell to people. Okay. And if you hire the best, the street smarts that we were talking about earlier, someone who knows the larger ecosystem, having the ability to connect dots, and being technically proficient, which is something that you do on the job. A mix of this will lead to the the vibrant ecosystem that we mentioned earlier, where your hard work is most definitely rewarded, and it is acknowledged by the team that there is a fair chance for everyone, a level playing field, a level of trust within the leader, manager, and the team. So it's a larger discussion that I'm so glad that CXO forum has made a start, and I'm encouraged by the fact that you mentioned having other sessions really targeting those
Most
leaders
definitely.
in Pakistan who need to always be open to external and internal interventions and influences so that they are successful. So I'm happy to be part of any conversation which sort of builds
We are
that
looking
ecosystem
forward to it.
across the industries. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for
Thank
the
you very much.
opportunity.
Thank you, Naveed, Siraj, and thank you, Sadaf. Thank you very much for your time. And we will be looking forward to connecting with you again. And we will probably be talking about leadership, growth, and all different aspects. And thank you once again very much for your time and for your valuable comments. Thank
It was
you.
a
Thank you.
pleasure,
Thank you, Shazad.
Shazad and Naveed Saab. It was a pleasure sharing the stage with you. So have a good
Thank
Thank
day.
you.
you, Sadaf. Pleasure is
Take
all mine.
care.
Thank you.
Have a nice
Bye.
day. Thank you.
Bye. Assalamu alaikum. Bye.
Assalamualaikum.